Hey, YouTube, and welcome to the Clicking Buttons podcast, the podcast meant for online players and the players that shape the online community. Today, we have a special guest, Jeremiah Williams. He is an online poker pro who has transitioned through live poker back to online poker, currently playing live poker and streaming it on Twitch with a challenge, a bankroll challenge where he's turning a bankroll of $50,000 all the way to $200,000. That's correct, right? $200,000?
Yes, that's the challenge.
Okay, just want to make sure. So yeah, he is live streaming his whole journey, and he's giving all of the viewers a great insight to what it's like to be an online poker pro. So I'm excited to have you on today, Jeremiah. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, CG Poker. I appreciate being here.
Yeah. For those that don't already know who you are, I have been watching the stream, so I am a bit of a fan myself. I have seen you tell a lot of different stories, and so we'll get to some of those stories. But more specifically, I'm interested in how you started getting into online poker and how that was connected to Pokemon, the card game.
How I started getting into online poker or poker in general?
Online poker,
Okay.
specifically.
So I was a live poker player. From like when I was 15. I'm 23 right now, but when I was 15, I started playing live poker. And then for a few years, I was only live, and then I started playing. Basically, I mean, obviously, you can't really play online unless you're 18, at least legally, and I knew, you know, around the time I was 17, that I knew that basically live poker players were not very good, and that if you wanted to be legitimately good at poker, you had to be playing online. So I always knew I was just gonna have to transition into online and really learn this game that is No Limit Hold'em. And so I started playing online when I was 18. I got onto Global Poker, which is really my where I guess I really started to grow my bankroll. And it was around the year 2017 or early 18 when I got onto Global Poker. And if you were around back then, I imagine most of the audience wasn't. If you were around back then, you would know that like there was like like an entire poker boom basically. Like you could deposit with PayPal. There's no monthly limit. You could just load up 5K, 5K, 5K. There's no
Oh, wow.
it was
On the
just
American sites?
yeah, on Global Poker. Right now it's different. You have to deposit with like $500 with like a 12K monthly limit, but back then you could just load it up with PayPal and you could just load up 5K, 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 and there's just like infinite games basically. There was like
Really?
6 plus like 10, 20 tables like around the clock. There wasn't even 5, 10. It just went 2, 4, 3, 6, and 10, 20. So
Wow. That's pretty sick, actually, because I'm kicking myself so hard hearing you say this right now. Because while those games were running in 2018, I was battling people on PokerStars in the international pool, and I just didn't. I don't know what it was. I was just too stubborn to play in those American pools. But hearing this, I'm like, oh man, I missed out.
and I really wasn't very good, but I mean, there's like an entire poker room going on basically on Global Poker in like 17, 18. And basically, I had built up a bankroll from a few years of live poker. So I just got in there and started playing, like 200 NL at first, and quickly kind of moved up the stakes basically, even though I really wasn't objectively that good.
Okay.
I'm sure I wouldn't have done great on Poker Stars or whatnot back then, but there was just really like game quality was out of this world, and there was just like infinite tables,
Wow.
so that was like where I really had my breakout year was 2018, and that's when I started playing 1020 online that same year.
Oh wow.
But
So you moved up really quickly from depositing the initial like for the 200 NL.
yeah, I basically just deposited like a couple $1,000 and tone it up to infinity. Or no, basically for the site. It was like, I mean, it wasn't. It's basically what everyone did though. Like there was so many other guys my age that just like had their breakout years in 2018 that just like made a lot of money on global poker. And the game qualities really cannot be. I cannot overstate it. I mean, it was pretty insane.
Wow, that sounds it's starting. It sounds like the days of full tilt poker. So I'm a bit before you. I was probably a generation removed, but when I was coming up, full tilt poker was kind of the place to play, and all the soft games and 5, 10, 10, 20, 25, 50 was running over there. And so I think like in my experience, it was the softest games ever online. Then Black Friday hit. Then it was just like the hardest games ever online. And then it went into a lull for a while. And then it seemed like American sites started to come up on the rise again in like 2015, 2016, 2017. I played a lot on Bodog at that time. And I think Ignition and stuff started becoming more popular. And I guess Global Poker. I'm not too familiar with Global, but it sounds like you kind of had another uprising around 2018 when you were jumping in.
Yeah, I imagine it was like back in the day for a little while because I mean it was just open to everyone in all 50 states, and the traffic was absolutely insane. And I don't know. I mean, I think I wasn't around back then. I started playing poker in 2015, and like I said, I played live first, so I wasn't around back in the OG days like you. But
Yeah.
I
I'm old
imagine
in
it
the
was
poker world. I'm like ancient relic in the poker world. The online poker world especially. Like people are surprised I'm even playing online still.
wow. Well, that's cool. It's cool to be around. Wow, that means you're doing something right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still in there battling. So yeah, so you got into these global poker sites, ran up a bankroll to infinite. Was it always kind of your plan to just make money from poker? What was it about online poker that you wanted to get out of it? Was it just the strategy? Was it the money?
Hmm. Um. I'd say it was both. I mean, just you can make more money playing online poker than live. I mean, unless you're playing like some outrageously high stakes live game, the ability to multi-table and just play multiple sites and game select across a bunch of stakes, like it's kind of hard to make more money live unless you're just playing outrageously big. So for me, it was definitely like money motivated, but also I did really enjoy. I've come to really enjoy the online poker lifestyle. I mean, I just love just like every to go to the like I live like 25 minutes from the Vegas Strip, and I just find myself hard. It's hard to even get down there. I mean, you go to the fucking casino. You like takes a half hour. You wait on the list for like an hour or two or three sometimes just to get into like the 10-20 game. You have to leave. It
Yep.
takes another half hour. Sometimes the line in the cage is like really long, and they have like one employee, and you're in the cage line for 20 minutes. I mean, I love the online life, and it's definitely for me. And ever since like 2018, I've been primarily an online guy and branching out across the other sites and whatnot besides global. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's really impressive that you've carved out a living already just battling in online poker because I think a lot of people think that the online poker dream is dead. You know,
yeah,
you hear players all the time talk about online is so difficult. Everyone's using RTA, everyone's botting, everyone's, really well studied and it's cutthroat and these regs are not giving up any EV. And it's just like that's not the case whatsoever, is it? It sounds like you found a really nice niche for yourself in these American sites, crushing these high stakes games. I mean, do you think the online poker dream is dead?
oh man, I think it's alive and well. I think it's so alive and well. I actually, so I have a lot of thoughts on this subject.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Basically, I think that like people in like my position have always taken the stance of just like if you're making a lot of money from online poker, you just shut the hell up and you don't talk about it. You don't tell anyone about your strategy. And I kind of I know that's basically been the mo for this. I call like the shadowy online grinders, right? For like forever.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming to our detriment. Actually, I think that people people need to be aware that you could still make like mid six figures a year at least in online poker. People need to be aware that the dream is alive because I think about why I got into poker. And when I was 15, it was basically that poker dream of making like 500K a year or plus or whatever. That ideal that this is possible,
Yep.
and I discovered like that it was possible. But I think like you said, like no one really thinks it's possible anymore, and the sentiment is like worse than ever. Basically, especially about online no limit hold'em cash, the sentiment is really negative, and I can only speak from my experience on like playing the sites that I play on. But my experience on the sites that I play on is just the. I mean, I think we have more games going than like 2000. I think about like 2019 and like I think about now, and then I think there's just more games going now, especially on like a site like a WSOP. Like ever since COVID, I think there's just been more and more people playing online here in America. And for the first time, I think that things are on the up and up, actually, while the world is just saying the opposite, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's
Um,
interesting to hear your view on what helps online poker and hurts it because I didn't really think too much about, you're totally right, by the way. A lot of these pros, if they're playing on a site, they're like super tight-lipped about it. If it's good action and they're winning, they won't tell anybody, right?
yeah,
So you have that, like, I don't know, effect. I don't know what you would call it, but like this effect of games are good, no one's talking about them, but then the games are going to dry up because no one's talking about them. So those regs just like, deplete those resources real quick. The games don't continue to grow and the regs have to move on to another source. So like it's actually in some ways a detriment to themselves, like you were saying, not sharing that games are still beatable. Games are good. Like let's promote the cash games.
exactly. That's exactly where I'm coming from. The primary reason why I decided to do this challenge. You
Yeah.
know, I think that a lot of people don't even think it's possible to make like 150K in a year when I personally think you can make way more than that. And that's kind of the purpose for this challenge is to complete it in a reasonable time frame and show that these games are still good, people. These games are beatable. You can make a living. The dream is alive because that dream needs to be alive basically for poker to thrive. I think that that dream, that ideal has to be alive.
Yeah.
It's just
I 100% agree with that. Can you quickly tell the viewers that don't know what the challenge is, what the challenge is?
Oh, this so the challenge is I've given my it's a bankroll challenge slash speed run basically. I've given myself $50,000 to work with on WSOP.com and Global Poker, both American facing sites.
Okay.
And the goal is to turn that into 200,000 within reasonable time frame. I started the challenge January 1st, 2023. So we're almost a month way through the challenge at the moment. And we got like 62.5K or thereabouts
Okay.
at the moment.
And you're pretty bullish that you're going to complete this in a short period of time, or?
I think I'm gonna complete this. Well, in EV, I don't know. I think I'll complete this in around April or March or maybe May. But yeah, that's EV. Obviously, we know
Yeah.
that poker. I mean, I could be done next month, or I could be done in like October. Time will tell.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
yeah, I could have the opposite effect, I suppose. If I just fail and don't complete the challenge, I might have the opposite effect as I'm intending. But I'm very bullish that I'll get this challenge done.
Okay. So all of online poker community is on your shoulders. That's fine. No
Maybe,
pressure or anything. But
maybe so.
yeah. So like you're doing this challenge. I saw that you started streaming about not even you said a month ago. Was it mainly just this idea of wanting to show people that the games are good, that cash games are worth watching, that you wanted to start streaming, or was there any other kind of like motivation for you to get in the streaming streets?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I just wanted to get this started, and I've had that view basically that online pros being like in the shadows is like being detrimental for like a few years now actually, and I just kind of had this idea in my head for quite a while. I decided I'm just gonna do this. And I was thinking of a way to maybe like showcase that what I think. Like this
Right.
challenge seems like a good way to do it. I don't think anyone's done. I mean, people have done like the $100 to $10,000 challenge, like Doug. There's a lot of people doing that one. But in my point of view, I think that the ideal that you can make like like six figures or like middle six figures a year. I think that's the real dream. I feel like the turning $100 into $10,000 is like step one,
Yeah.
and then step two is like making a significant amount of money a year, and that's the real ideal, the real dream. So I don't think anyone's ever done a challenge like this before. So this is the this is the goal where it came
Nice.
from.
Yeah, I tried starting a challenge similar to that, and then I got overwhelmed and realized I'm just not going to do it. But I there was some other factors too. But I think what you're doing is awesome. I really appreciate that as a cash game player. You know, there are not many positive role models in cash games for other players to look up to and to like realize the dream is still alive. So yeah, I'm a big fan of you doing that for sure. Um, is there so since you are fairly let's say fairly new to Twitch, I know that you have had a very short stint using Twitch a while ago, but most recently this is maybe your more serious venture into Twitch. How have you been enjoying it? Do you think like this is something that you might want to do long term, or is it more of like, let's do this challenge, let's show a bunch of people, and then we'll go back to playing online poker for a while?
Originally, I was thinking I would just do this challenge and be done, but now that I'm actually doing it, I find to really enjoy the Twitch grind. And I mean, it's going better than I thought it would go, to be blunt. And I'm really enjoying like interacting with the people and whatnot. And I think I'll continue it post challenge. I'm gonna continue post challenge. How much I'm not sure. Whether I'll keep doing 60 hours a week, I don't think I don't think I'll be doing 60 hours a week, but I definitely see myself doing like 30 hours a week or something post challenge. But I'm not sure like as far as future challenge, I haven't really thought of like any like future challenges or gimmicks or anything. But I think
Yeah.
I'll continue post challenge, but I just won't be going as super hard.
Yeah, I think it's a personally, when I started streaming on Twitch, it was meant for like a way to just motivate me to study. So when I first
Mm.
started streaming, it was just like I would stream to like 3 or 4 viewers studying PioSolver for like 8 hours, and it was just to hold me accountable to study. But over time, I started to like realize like, oh, this is kind of fun, like interacting with people, and then you start playing. And when I do like play and explains, kind of like how you do on your stream, there's another element that's brought in by streaming on Twitch as a poker player. It kind of holds you accountable for like explaining your thought process. Do you find like, you know, when you're trying to explain to the viewers, like, oh yeah, I'm three betting here because of this blocker, I'm three betting this combo because this player is not doing this X enough and stuff like that. Like I found that it actually improved my game in a lot of ways, like forcing me to actually explain my strategy. And then if I can't, I'm like, oh shoot, maybe I should study this more. Do you ever have that effect while you're streaming?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I agree with what you just said. You definitely get held accountable. If he makes some outrageous punts, I mean, then if you're just in your room alone, then no one's ever gonna know.
Right.
Uh, so that's certainly different. Yeah. Um, I think it certainly helps. Maybe I play like 10% better or something on stream. I'm not sure. Uh, I think there's a little bit of that.
Yeah. And also like you're not as tempted to multi-table a bunch of bad games or like challenge a guy heads up if you know he's like a bad spot. Like I think just like overall decision making is better when you have a bunch of eyes on you that you know you have to like be accountable for.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So,
I agree.
what does your grind setup look like? I know that you're in your home right now, right?
Yeah.
You live in Vegas. Are you playing on one monitor, two monitors? Have you been always a PC guy? Do you play on laptops when you travel? Let's
I've always been like a homebody. If I don't even have a laptop. So I have like some like mega PC, and then I have like a 34-inch ultra wide LG monitor, and then I have like a vertical HP monitor that's kind of crappy. So I have two monitors, and I play on the ultra wide, and then I keep all the lobbies open on the vertical monitor to watch the lobbies,
Yeah, that's smart.
and I find that's pretty good. I have like an L-shaped desk.
Nice.
Uh, Now I have all this streaming equipment, so it's much more like messy in here.
Yeah.
Um,
When I tell people I play on one 24-inch monitor, they look at me sideways every
what?
time. See,
You don't have to what?
I have
That's
one
wild.
24-inch monitor that I stream and play poker on. Yeah,
That's wild, man.
I know. I know. I have trouble with lobbies for what you were saying. Like, it's nice to have the second monitor to have the lobbies over on the right, so you don't have to constantly be opening and closing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I might upgrade to the widescreen soon, but yeah, still only on the 24-inch monitor, one table grind or two table grind now. Yeah,
Once you upgrade, you're gonna feel so good. It's
I
gonna be so
know.
easy.
I know. I'm a very simple person when it comes to things. Like, I don't use a HUD. I use one monitor. Um, all of my study is using one program effectively now. Like, it's very streamlined. So talking about studying and getting better, I know that you've talked a little about how you're very much in like the solver streets. You're very much a studied player. Um, I know that I was I was in a stream one time, and you were talking about how Landon Tice um, is known as kind of like the solver guy, but you were the OG solver guy. Do you want to talk a little bit about your approach to poker with studying and using solvers?
So, like I mentioned, I started playing poker in 2015, and that was also the same year the Pile Solver released. And I had like a friend slash like mentor figure who was like first on that, and he was playing like NL50 online and stuff, which meant he was like the best player in our live games by a mile. Anyway, so he basically influenced me to buy Pile Solver like right away. Like when it came out, geez, like almost 8 years ago now.
Yep.
And so I was in the pilot lab from day one, even though I wasn't playing online, but I still found it really useful. And I also was in that on that grind like really early. And
Did you
I
have like
think,
a really strong computer for running your own sims, or
yeah, I invested like I remember I spent like 20% of my net worth on a computer.
classic?
and and then later on I would get a Contabo server for a long time. I had a server for many years.
Yeah.
And it's better to have a server instead of burning out your PC.
Yep. I,
Th-
I blew up a graphics card or two actually, or CPU.
checks out.
Yeah.
Checks out for sure. So I was pretty early with the Pio, and I remember back then. Maybe you can recall this. Like people were like pretty skeptical at first. The poker
Yeah.
community was somewhat skeptical, and people were I don't know. There's like a popular sentiment that people knew better than the solver, or like, oh, my opponents don't play anything like the solver, so this is like a worthless tool, or like whatever. This was like this might seem crazy to people who started playing poker like 2 years ago, but that's how like the bulk of the community felt like 7 years ago. And so being like early on buying Pio was like probably my biggest edge.
For sure.
And then Bunker Solver came later for preflop. That was like a really good tool for preflop. And I think people didn't really catch on to Bunker Solver for a long time either. So I think I was pretty ahead of the curve with getting on the solver train. I was on the solver train like really early on, and that helped me a lot for like all the obvious reasons. Basically, I mean,
Yeah.
I think I was pretty far ahead of my peers when I was playing online poker like 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I felt like I was pretty far ahead, and a lot of them had never got on that train yet. But
Yeah. I can relate to that. When Munker came out, I was actually playing PLO at the time, and it was the first kind of PLO solver
yeah,
to come out that was commercialized. There was some private solvers, but like this one was like in the public eye. And I remember I was so excited it came out. I immediately bought it, and I had a computer that I, much like you, invested probably 10 or 20% of my net worth in, and I immediately started running sims and trying to figure out things. And I remember how excited I was. Like, okay, I'm gonna run these 5 sims. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna wake up, and then I'm gonna like organize the data and like try and study it all and stuff like that. So I can totally relate to like getting on that early train, um, and then just learning how to use those programs is just so valuable as a poker player, because understanding how they work is kind of like a lesson into game theory in itself, right? Because you're understanding how equilibriums work, you're understanding how the solver thinks about poker, how you can maybe think like the solver, not necessarily copying it, but learning the heuristics and the applying all of the knowledge into your game.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. Picking up on the pattern recognition, creating the heuristics, the proper rule sets to follow that, will put you in good spots post
Right.
flop. I mean, yeah, it's invaluable.
Yeah.
It's invaluable.
I had someone in chat talk about how we have different approaches. Um, I guess I'm a little bit more loyal to the solver outputs. Like if I see someone deviating and there's room for exploitation, like I'll recognize it, but I won't take it as much. And so I guess this user was talking about how they see that you make significant changes according to different players that you're playing against. Do you often deviate from all of the solver play to find the exploits as well?
So over time, I would say I've put in so much time in the solver. Over time, I remember when I first started, I was basically trying to just yeah, be a slave to the sim, as someone says in the chat. And then over more in time, I find that there's more value in deviating. Basically, and partially it's my opponents. Like I'm not playing like PokerStars Zoom. I'm playing against like I mean some of these guys that I'm playing against that are pros online here on these sites have like never used a solver in their life. Like
Right.
and versus someone like this, like it makes a lot of sense to deviate. But if I'm playing against like really tough players, then I'm not going to do much deviating at all. So yeah, I would say I do like try to exploit to the max when given the opportunity. Um, but it's all very opponent dependent, and when I play against tougher players, I'm not really stepping outside the box like this.
Right. Have you had a lot of tournament experience too with playing a more solver based strategy, or has it primarily been more of the cash games? Because doing some backgrounds, I noticed that you do have 2 World Series of Poker bracelets, which very impressive at your age. I think you were like the second youngest person to ever achieve this. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. I think Adrian Mateos is the youngest
Yeah.
by a couple of months.
Well, that's
Um,
that's still an amazing achievement, obviously. So, do you think like a lot of your study was put into tournaments as well, or was it mostly the cash games?
I'm gonna be honest. Like, I've basically only done like a handful of tournament ICM sims for Bubble and for Final Table, and that's it. And I've done like very little tournament work. Um, and a lot of it is just kind of guesswork for me. I don't really play that many of them, to be
Yeah.
honest. I basically play the softest ones I can find, which are gonna be the WSOP online bracelet events and ring events. They're like, I mean, like the pro to recreational ratio in those is like absolutely insane. Like there's just so many people that just want to play it, win a bracelet or win a ring or whatever. Like
Right.
so I pretty much just play like super soft ones. And since I'm not very well studied, and I think that I've just run like really well. I, without a
Most
doubt,
that's
I've
most
run really
tournament
well.
players. It's not just you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you did win these in the online World Series of Poker events, which is really cool because obviously that hasn't always been around. There's some controversy around those in some ways about people say like they're not real bracelets or something like that, or they say this and that, which I can't disagree more with. I think that it's obviously one of the most legitimate ways of winning any kind of poker tournament. Um, but how do you feel about, do you feel like this was something that you've always wanted to achieve, winning a World Series of Poker bracelet? Do you feel like you've accomplished this? Do you want more? Is there any more like tournaments in your future?
Mm, before my whole life, I never. I mean, I never cared at all about winning a bracelet. I never had any. I never thought I was gonna win one because I don't play tournaments to begin with, really, and I never cared about them at all. I've basically always been a cash game guy for life, and then, this world is ironic sometimes, and I ended up winning like my second or third like WSOP event I ever entered, and I guess I got a taste of the drug. I don't now
That's
I
how they
like
get you.
it is how they get you, and I enjoy playing them. And I'm never gonna be like a live grinder. I'm never gonna go grind the live World Series. I'm happy to just play like the main event and the heads up event and not play any other tournaments live. But these online ones are I'm always gonna be playing these online ones. They're just really I mean the ease of access is unreal. I can just get on my computer. It's just nice and convenient, and it doesn't really take up too much brain power. They just do like one at a time, and I can just I remember like every time I ran deep or won tournament, I was just like grinding cash games the whole time, and
Yeah,
yeah,
that's how it is. I some of my bigger bankroll boosts came from tournaments I randomly just decided to play because I was like trying to add some extra tables or something like that. And then you go ahead and you bink one of these like online tournaments, and all of a sudden your bankroll grows exponentially. And now you're thinking, oh, am I going to start playing higher stakes cash now because of this? Or, like, do you feel like this challenge? You've mentioned that it's you going from 50K to 200K. Is there a lot of bankroll considerations within doing something like that? I know that you tend to give advice to other viewers that it's better to be a bankroll nit and to be really conservative with everything. Have you kind of applied that to your own journey?
see two two things there. Well, the bankroll challenge is this 50K to 200K. I'm not following any bankroll rules. Like if 100 200 goes tonight, I'm gonna play because
Yeah,
there's gonna like the thing is the 100 200 game runs like 4 times a year, and it's basically all. I mean, it's always around like the biggest whale of all time, essentially. And the person is just like trying to absolutely stone dead to win in the long run. So there's no rules to be blunt. There's no rules, and I've been calling this more of a speed run because there's no rules.
right,
And yeah, but as far as reality goes, for real, if you're not doing a like a speed run challenge, then yeah, I think super nitty bankroll management is extremely important. And I guess it's important to know this is not my net worth or anything.
right,
This 50 starting point. This is more of a speed run, and I want to show people, just that you can make a lot of money playing online poker in 2023 is really the goal, and the goal isn't really to teach like proper or do the goal isn't to do that with proper BRM necessarily. It's
right.
just to show that's possible. But as far as real life goes, and yeah, super nitty bankroll management is extremely good. And in my earliest years of poker, I did not follow those rules, but I come to follow nitty bankroll management. After being around the block, so to speak.
Which is
Um,
wild to say since you're only 22, 23,
yeah, 23.
23. Yeah. I
Yeah,
wish I learned that lesson back then. I've busted many bankrolls from the ages of 23 to about 30.
nitty BRM, nitty BRM, and you'll never go bust.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
learned that
there.
now. I'm 35 now, and I've learned to finally be conservative with bankroll after shooting for the moon, landing below the surface of the earth many times. But it is good advice to be nitty with bankroll management. You said, I mean, you also have had a lot of success in the online streets already. You say you kind of crushed the high stakes American sites, um, and you kind of just did it. You kind of are the product of the online poker dream. You got in to good games. You worked hard. You made your money. You also, I heard that you're into investing. You've
Yeah,
done a lot of investing as well with all of the success at online poker.
yeah, yeah. Done all right for myself in the investing streets. Basically. Well, I mean, basically every poker player in the world who was playing poker back in the day, like 7 years ago or something, like if you wanted to play on Ignition, you have to deposit with Bitcoin and cash out with Bitcoin, or you want to play an ACR, you do it with Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever,
Yep.
and so I was playing on all these sites like back in the day when crypto prices were cheap and winning money, and so I basically was a early crypto investor, not really because I wanted to be, but
Yeah, you're
because
forced into it.
yeah, I was just forced into it. So that turned out to be pretty lucky. Um, I was never I know some of my peers just instantly cashed out their crypto anytime they got it, but I was just like I would just hold it and kind of gamble on it, personally. And then I started investing in stocks when I was 18, and then I made like a Vanguard account.
Wow,
Uh,
that is a very responsible thing to do as an 18-year-old.
And I had a friend who was also like I this is the reason why I did it actually. I had a friend who was also 18 and he had the same exact life trajectory as me basically. Got into poker at 15, made a lot of money. And this person like made a Vanguard account and threw in like six figures when they were 18.
Oh wow.
And I was like, what is Vanguard? I was like, what is the S&P 500 like? And it was this person who like educated me basically on investing. So I wasn't aware of it, and I had like a smart friend who was aware of it, and then S&P 500 what did pretty good those years as well back in the
Wow.
day. I don't know. I just got really lucky. I ran like white hot basically with investments, which allowed me to play like higher stakes pretty responsibly at a young age. So that helped as well. Also, nitty lifestyle. I mean, I didn't like spend any money. I grew up like in like extreme poverty essentially. So when I moved out eventually at 18, like I mean I was pretty much conditioned my whole life like not to spend any money whatsoever. So I
Wow.
had all this money, but I didn't like I had like a bed with like no sheets. I had like a $50 chair and like a shitty desk. And essentially like the only thing I spent real money on was like a desktop computer. And so I was just really nitty with money for a long time. And that helped too.
That's wild. Yeah, that's a perfect storm right there. So that reminds me of a couple of things. One, you're talking about the Bitcoin on the sites using that, and I was backed by someone that wanted me to play on Bodog, and the only way to play on Bodog was the Bitcoin deposits. And so he would always send me like Bitcoin. I would throw it on Bodog, play with it, and then withdraw, and then wait to send it to him. And so he sent me like 10,000 in Bitcoin, which Bitcoin was at 1K or less, I think, at the time. And so I ended up running that 10K on Bodog up to 60K, withdrawing all those Bitcoin, and then just like holding on to them, waiting for him to like do something or tell me what to do next. And then he's like, just hold on to them and we'll settle up later. So it just sat in my account, and over the years, obviously they went up, and I ended up sending him the 6 figures worth of Bitcoin after. So he ended up profiting just because I was holding on to them for him. It felt real bad transferring 6 figures in the Bitcoin after earning only like 60K or something like that. But yeah, so like that stuff happens in the poker world, I think, because you have a lot of these sites that were only accepting crypto. A lot of people were forced into crypto. Um, and you just kind of had to learn about it really quick if you wanted to play on these sites, right? Like there wasn't too many other options for depositing. You couldn't use your debit card or anything like that. Maybe now they're a little more regulated on certain sites, but yeah, that was kind of how you got money on and off.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a choice.
Yeah,
Had to get into it, which was turned out to be pretty lucky. But well, lucky if you were around back in the day, I
right.
suppose.
And then the other thing that reminded me of was there's a famous picture of Tom Dwan when he was young, probably like in his late teens, early 20s, with like some other crushers. I think it was like Raptor and maybe Galfond or the Dang brothers, and they were all sitting around a computer, like one monitor on this like budget, uh, makeshift fold out table. And Dwan was sitting in like a metal fold out chair, and they're playing like 1K, 2K on full tilt poker.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that photo. That's classic.
Yeah, I was
It's
like,
really
oh my god. Yeah, so there's that. That's great though. That you've had that much success and you've gotten good fortune along the way as well. What's in the future for you in terms of battling online poker? Is poker kind of something that you want to always play for the rest of your life? I know it's so early in your life now to answer that accurately, but like, what's your feelings on like just playing in the future? Do you think about getting into something else, or is poker kind of like your passion that you're going to be around in for a while?
That's a good question. I've always kind of thought that like, oh, if I had like 10 million or something, I'll just quit forever. But if I'm honest with myself, I don't know if that's true. I'll probably always play at some degree. But I do have this idea that like, oh, if I ever have like 10 million or something, like I'll probably just take a chill pill and I am married for the audience. I'm a married guy. So I don't know. I think part of the goal of poker is always to retire early. You just make a lot. You want to make a lot of money and retire early. I think that's a pretty universal, almost universal goal, and I
Yeah.
have that as well. But I'll probably always play to some degree. So I think I'll always play, but I'll definitely relax at some point if I reach certain financial goals.
Right. I think, yeah, a lot of people have that goal of getting rich quick, retiring early. I know I did. Um, but I think there's also another side to it where once you get that goal of retiring early, you're like, okay, now what? Right? Like you're just kind of like, got to fill my time somehow. Might as well do something I love. And if you still love poker, probably still going to keep playing poker. I know that you've had experience in other card games. I mentioned it early on, Pokemon. You were, I don't want to say for sure, but I think you were close to becoming the world champion. Is that true?
Well, yeah, the best I ever got in the world championship was ninth place, but I don't know. I guess that's close, but and
That
I
that
got
that is
like
in fact close. Yes.
I got like 14th and like 20 somethings. I forgot. I got like 24th or something once. But yeah, the best I ever did was ninth. And I played the Pokemon trading card game for like 13 years, from like age like 3 to 16. I think was my last world championship. But so that also ties in with how I got into poker though. Um,
Right.
basically, makes you talk about this. Basically, so I'm from Northern Illinois originally, basically Wisconsin, but just like right below the border. And there was like a multiple Pokemon World Time Champion. There's like a U.S. National Champion, a world runner up. This other guy who's like a world top eighter. Basically, like all the best players in the world were from like my neck of the woods. They were from. So I basically grew up my whole life playing with the best players in the world.
That's pretty
And I
cool.
think yeah, it was also it's also kind of like freak anomaly that all these people are just in like Chicago, Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so talent breeds talent to a decent degree, I think, and just being around them, talking about Pokemon with them, and but anyways, a couple of these guys were apart from being like some of the best Pokemon players in the world, that doesn't really pay the bills. So some of these guys were like live poker pros, like 2.5 and 5.10 live pros, for their primary source of income. And when I was like a young teenager, I started like talking to these people about it more, and I realized, and then I remembered watching like high stakes poker on TV with my grandpa. And then I was talking to these guys, and they're like making like 70K a year or something. And I was like, holy shit! Like, if I could just make like 70K a year, like that would be amazing. Because I mean, I grew up very poor, and I was just like, my life would be like changed forever, and I'd never have to get a job or go to college. If I could just make like 70K a year, like that would be absolutely amazing. And through knowing these people through Pokemon, that's pretty much how I started playing poker. And there was another Pokemon player who was a dealer. He was a dealer in his job at various like one real poker room, but mostly at home games. And this dealer is the person who really got me into poker. His name was Ryan, and oh, he's passed away now. But Ryan basically got me into poker, bringing me to these home games that were like live 1-2, 1-3 when I was 15. Shout out to
Wow,
Ryan.
that's definitely an intro to poker.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, I was into it right away. I dropped out of high school after like my fifth session ever. I
Really?
was. I was just all in right away when I was
Wow.
15.
Did you feel like Pokemon had a easy transition into a card game like poker? Like, did a lot of the strategy or the experience of learning strategy for a card game translate into poker?
I think no and yes. I think that as far as strategy goes and actually playing the game, then I think probably not. But as far as like the macro, like the intangible skill sets, I think some of those helped a lot because basically Pokemon for the audience, it's a game of skill and also luck, just like poker. And that you could I took a lot of bad beats in Pokemon. Like I lost a lot of games where it was like the winner got like 2.5K or 5K or something, and like I had like an 88 point whatever percent chance to win, and then like the 12.5% happens and you just lose and get absolutely nothing. So I went through like variants in Pokemon in the Pokemon streets. I went through some variants, that's for sure. So I think as far as coping with variants and understanding that you could be the good player and still lose, and lose pretty often, even though you're the better player. So it helped me with my understanding of variance. I had an understanding of that from the beginning. But as far as actually playing the game, I don't think it helped at all. But it did help with understanding variance.
Yeah,
That's
that
true.
makes total sense. Did you ever get into like the collecting part of it, or was it more about the strategy and like the playing the game for you?
For me, it was always about the strategy and playing the game. But collecting kind of happens as a side effect
Right.
because when you're playing these tournaments, typically the prize money or prize, oftentimes the prize money is like you win booster boxes. And if, I don't know, for the audience, like a booster box is like a sealed thing of like 36 packs. And say you like do good in this tournament, you might get like 3 boxes or 6 boxes or something. So and each box is like 70 or 80 bucks of dollar value, at least back then. But then and you'd open the cards, and then the reality is like 95% of cards are absolutely worthless and competitive, and they just sit in a binder forever. So basically like 99% of what I had just sat in a binder forever. And I had cards basically from like 2002 to like 2016 or something. I have pretty much
Oh
everything.
wow.
And it happened as a side effect, really. I never cared about collecting, but it just happens when you're like doing good in tournaments all the time, you just accumulate like infinite cards.
Right.
But
Yeah.
sadly, I opened all my booster boxes as I got them, and now it's like the sealed booster boxes are like 20K, 10K, 40K.
It's wild. Like, have you been
It's
following all of the crazy prices and the trading of that?
yeah, I have been since like COVID. I mean, it's basically was. I mean, this is probably besides I guess besides crypto, this is the second best investment of my life, and it was an investment that I never I
That's
never
so
intended
sick.
to make.
Yeah. That's it's
I
so
got really
sick. You accidentally got into crypto and you had to collect to be good at this game that you enjoyed playing. That also ended up becoming a good investment.
yeah, yeah. It was just like total accident. But some of the coolest stuff I have though is because I've competed in 7 world championships. And every time you compete in a world championship, you get all these like custom cards they create just for that year. And then if you get top 32, you get a card with like your stamped placement on it. So I have like all these like really like hard to get world championship cards from all the years that I went from
Wow.
back in the day. So that's like my favorite stuff. But
That's awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean it was so I grew up with Pokemon like just coming out, like the card game. I can't remember if I was in high school or middle school, but I do remember my dad used to give me $5, which somehow bought lunch back then, to go buy lunch every day. And instead of buying lunch like the degen that I am, I went and bought Pokemon cards and just starved for the rest of the day until I got home. so,
I love it. The
so I
real
used to
grind.
go and yeah, buy packs and packs trying to find all of the, the rare cards. I was more on the collecting side. I liked the show. I liked the game, the card game. And so I just liked opening packs. I think it just was like the beginning of my inner degen starting to develop, where it was like a form of gambling. You open up the packs, you're like, oh, am I going to get the card? Yes, no, maybe. And so, yeah, but like many other people, I stored my cards in a place that eventually, I'm assuming my dad threw them out or something like that. But yeah, I had all the top cards that you could have probably had, and am mourning that loss now, seeing all of these crazy prices happen.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, the cars, they shouldn't be worth this much,
No.
but they are.
Have you thought about like selling any of your collection or anything like that, or you're just it's more for your
I
own
don't,
enjoyment?
I've thought greatly about selling stuff, but I haven't really sold anything as of now.
Okay.
I'm just sitting on like I have like 6 figures worth of Pokemon cards sitting in a bank security deposit box, basically, and
That's awesome.
I'm just thinking about I don't know. It's also a lot of work to sell them. It's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take like several months off from poker, and like it's gonna take a lot of it's gonna take a lot of work. And I've kind of been meaning to sell a lot of the stuff I have, but I've been a bit lazy, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's a different skill set selling things. It takes
Yeah.
it takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of like haggling with people and all that stuff. So I can understand that. So getting back to poker, I think you've had all of this success early on. You've kind of been living the poker dream. You're streaming live on Twitch. Is there anything else in poker that you might have an aspiration for to achieve?
Hmm. Not really. I've been pretty capped out as far as the games I can play. Like there's not really stakes for me to move up to, and it's been that way for several years now. Where there's not really a stake, at least public games. There's no public games I can move up to. I mean, I could move to Canada and play like GG, but I don't want to do that personally.
Yeah, don't come here. We don't want you here.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't really want to do that, and I'm happy to stay where I am in Vegas and continue to grind the games I've been playing. And I guess the goal for me is really to remain vigilant and not get complacent.
Yeah, that's
And
tough.
I think it's pretty easy to fall into complacency and just stop studying and stop caring about improving. And for me, complacency is my greatest enemy at the moment. Got to stay away from that.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest enemy of success, as you just said.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about the public games versus the private games. Like, do you think like that's kind of something I suffer with too? Um, so I did something similar where I had a lot of success online. I went and I played live. I played really high stakes live. And then I couldn't really play higher. I couldn't really get into private games. It wasn't as much of a issue then as it is now. I was playing live in like 2011, 2012. So the games were still, fairly public. But it seems like they, like you mentioned, are harder to get into for the higher stakes games, which is like, it's a good problem to have, I guess you could say, but it's an issue that seems to be more and more common with high stakes players being shut out of games. Like, have you had any trouble, like you were saying, like getting into some maybe public games? I know you've played in a few big games in some casinos.
Any private games, basically, I find that I have trouble getting in. Um,
Yeah.
mm, and it's weird. I mean, when I was younger, like I played private games only in Illinois for years, and then when I moved to Florida, I played a few private games down there, and then I used to play a lot of private games in Texas too. But I find that over the last like 3 years or so, actually, ever since moving to Vegas, the private game scene is really tough to get into in Vegas. Unlike other states that I found, it's like um, and basically the only house game that I've gotten to play since living in Vegas was a cheated game, and
Oh.
I find that that's really scary too. So I actually don't really, after my experience of getting cheated for a substantial amount of money, um, I find I'm just good. Like
Yeah,
it's so risky. If you're basically just playing with fire, when you go and play like a private game, you're just playing with fire essentially. I mean, you could just like hit the lottery and you could moonshot and you could just make like infinite money if it's legit and everything's on the up and up. But or you could just get shredded into oblivion and it could just be a cheaty game and kind of do that in the nature of variance. Like I find actually that people like me and you are actually prime targets for a cheated private game because a good poker player is going to lose for a long time and just not quit because they understand
right.
variance. So I find that the victims of these like high stakes rigged games are typically like good online pros. They're typically because the live pros have been around the block and they kind of know to stay away.
Yeah,
A lot of the time it's good online pros just getting fleeced for huge sums of money. And I feel like I'm pretty much prime target number one. So anytime someone invites me to a game, I don't even go anymore. I'm really skeptical.
yeah,
And I mean, the exception, I guess, stream games are fine. Like I've played on Poker Go once or in WPT Cash Game once, and I'm always looking to play on those games. But as far as like private games, I'm good.
yeah.
Like,
I think I share that sentiment. People are always asking me why I'm grinding on Poker Stars, why I'm in Canada, like all of these questions, and it was because when online poker became illegal in the US, we had to move out of the country. And so you either moved to Mexico or you moved to Canada. I did the Mexico thing for a year and I was like, yeah, this was fun, but maybe not sustainable for a long term. And then traveled around Europe or whatever, but ended up in Canada. And I only play on mostly regulated sites now. And there's a lot of like ease of mind about that, right? Like a lot of these poker players that were playing on the apps when they first started coming out, or they were playing in these live private home games, or all of this stuff, it's like it's a risk cost analysis, right? Like it's not just, oh, these games are soft, I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to take all their money. Like first of all, you have to have money, liquid, that you can bring to a game. You have to be sure the game's not going to get cheated. You have to be sure that there's no shenanigans happening, maybe collusion, all sorts of different things that you might not be thinking or are privy to. So I think you're totally spot on when you say like the targets for a lot of these games are these like younger guys who aren't, that haven't gone through the ringer already to figure this out. But yeah, in general, I think the dream for me anyway is to just be able to start online poker in a regulated site and climb from like 25 cent, 50 cent all the way through 100, 200 online. That's the online poker dream. And I think, you're onto something here with some of these sites that you've been playing on in the US. They seem to be cleaning up their act a bit more as well. So that's, do you feel like you're safer on these sites compared to something like these live sketchy private games, or maybe some other alternatives?
I mean, I feel very safe on Global Poker and WSOP, and if like same goes for like Party Poker New Jersey or Poker Stars New Jersey or whatnot. Um, Yeah, I think that security is like pretty good. Basically, I mean, the thing WSOP doesn't publicize their ban lists, but I know for a fact they have a security team and they've banned a lot of people. And also, when I'm out and about in the streets, it's very apparent that like, I mean, these games are legit. Like
Yeah.
the pros are weak players, to put it blunt. The vast majority of them, they're just no one's like playing like theory and like collusion is just like non-existent and I mean, I feel very safe, and yeah, even I feel safer than even if it was like a public live game. I've been cheated in a public live game in the casino
Oh
before,
boy.
and that's a. I mean, the long story short is someone was marking cards with their fingernail,
Yeah, classic.
and, I mean, I legitimately feel safer in these online games than I do in the public live game. To be honest,
Yeah.
I think the paranoia is overblown, especially if you're in America playing American sites.
For sure. I think, like you said earlier, online poker has kind of suffered a lot of PR hits, right? Like
Yeah,
it's hard to beat the, the games are dry, like people are cheating, but it's not really that true. Like there's a very small portion of that that can be true, but overall, I think, like you said, the games are mostly legit. There's opportunity there. The games are still good. I remember talking about marking cards with fingernails when I was younger, and I played the World Series of Poker for the first time. I was 21 or 22, and I was playing these like 10K mixed games. I was a mixed games pro for most of my career, and so I would go to these mixed game events one after another, and I always noticed like we were always getting card changes. Like the cards were always getting marked and we were getting new setups, and it was like maybe once or twice a tournament every day I played we would get a new setup, and I was like, why is everyone just like marking these cards so much with, like, are they like peeling them wrong? I was like so naive. I wasn't
yeah,
thinking like, oh, they're actually just like finger marking the aces or the important cards in the mixed game. So if like you're playing something like triple draw, you would see the deuces always had this nail indent right in the middle of the card, and you just start to think like, oh wow, like how
yeah.
widespread is this, especially if it's at like a World Series of Poker event. You feel like that's kind of like where people shouldn't be cheating ever, but yeah, it's out there. You have to be careful, and the more you understand and the more you know about live games, the less it'll happen to you.
These people who mark cards with their nails, they like never get caught as well. The time
Yeah.
that the time that, in my experience, this one time the person actually got caught. There was
Really?
a pro in the game that was watching him do it, and he took timestamps down for like 4 or 5 different times that he marked cards. And then he goes to the floor manager. They go to the Eye and Sky, and they confirm
Oh
that he
wow,
in fact marked the cards at that time. And then they check the deck, and all the important cards were marked. And a pro caught this guy,
that's
and
very rare.
this guy from Canada. I forgot the pro's name. It wasn't someone famous though, but absolutely brilliant. I mean, like you, I was just like, oh, like people are peeling their cards wrong. Like it's,
Right,
just never had a thought, even one time for one moment, that it could be something nefarious when it was. And
right.
you just think about like, I mean, what a sicko to catch this guy and take the timestamps. What an absolute sicko. And you just think about all those other times where that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and like it's good that we have those sickos in poker because we need them, right? Like we need those people to come and be vigilantes in a way to just to clean up the games and make sure that the cheating is not happening. I think it's important. That's kind of how the ultimate bet scandal was just blown up, right? Like there was one guy who was just like looking through all the data, and it snowballed from there to figure out, oh, this is just impossible. Like it's just not statistically possible for this one guy to be crushing this hard. So yeah, there's always going to be the good guys in poker. I think chatting with you, I think most people can be a bit more positive about the direction of which poker is going. Do you think like these regulated sites are we're going in the right direction now?
I really think so. I really think so. And yeah, it looks like more and more states are looking to legalize online poker in their state. I'm pretty optimistic. Like right now, we have 5 states with online poker, and I don't know. I'm just really optimistic. I think maybe within 5 years, maybe we'll have closer to 10, and hopefully most of them will be merged. And I don't know. I feel like we're finally on the up and up here after a long period of darkness, you could say, after Black Friday.
Yeah.
For the
Well,
first
I
time,
love to hear that. I've lived through the darkness. It was not fun. Ready for some lights. I think this podcast has hopefully shown you guys that the online poker dream is alive and well. Jeremiah is coming in here, not you know, not too long ago, proved that it's alive and well. Currently proving that it's alive and well on his stream. So if you guys want to go check out his stream, please go check it out. If you'd like to shout out anything or plug anything, you have an open mic. Feel free.
well, just I'll be streaming tonight at 3 p.m. PST in about an hour. If anyone wants to check that out, Jeremiah_Williams.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast. I really do appreciate it. It was fun. I really do enjoy seeing someone come into this Twitch streets, someone that's had success in online poker, have a positive attitude towards online poker and everything. It makes me feel better about things. It makes me excited as well, and that's why I try and have people on this podcast that have good experience in online poker, have a good direction, and are hopefully bringing that online poker dream back to life. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me, CG Poker. It's been fun.
Yeah.